Ohio Department of Education.
Positive behavioral interventions and supports. It takes the whole building. Chapter 1. What is PBIS?
This school is an awesome school, and it makes me feel really, really safe.
This is one of my favorite buildings to come into because there are friendships and there are support and there's an understanding and acceptance of all.
This building has a great culture of love. The staff's loving, the students are loving, and so I'm excited to come to work.
You walk in and no matter what you are, people accept you, they want to be your friends, they judge you off your character.
There's no groups, no cliques, no different circles or anything, and everyone just wants to help each other out now, so it's really cool to see.
Our teachers are also kind and sweet.
As soon as you come in, they always have a smile on their face, and they always are looking forward to help you and answer any question you have.
It makes you feel like you're here for a purpose, and I think the kids really do appreciate it.
Everyone in our school is so amazing. We come together for each other, even though we're so different.
You are the best teacher in history, and I think you are awesome from infinity and infinities and back.
The school communities described by these students and staff have created a culture that embraces the whole child. It recognizes that each child has needs that must be met to ensure he or she is excited and ready to learn and grow. It establishes a sense of belonging for all. Students feel supported by caring, committed adults and empathetic peers. But it doesn't stop there. Staff members and families also experience the benefits of this culture. They feel valued for their essential roles in the community and enjoy a strong sense of camaraderie and partnership. So how did these schools make it happen? Welcome to Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports, or PBIS. The purpose of this video module is to provide you with an introduction and overview of PBIS. The module is divided into 6 chapters. In this introductory chapter, you'll learn what PBIS is and why it's important. In Chapter 2, you'll learn practical information on getting started with PBIS. The 3rd chapter focuses on teaching expectations to students. And Chapter 4 is all about reinforcing those expectations. Using data to guide decisions is the focus of Chapter 5. And in Chapter 6, you'll learn about creating a positive culture through PBIS. Again, this module is an overview of these concepts. After this module, many of you will continue with more involved training. Let's begin with the definition of PBIS. PBIS is a framework that uses evidence-based practices to support the physical well-being and safety, social, emotional, behavioral, and academic needs of all students. It's a process that guides adult behavior to create safe and supportive school environments. PBIS uses positive supports while teaching and reinforcing behavioral skills.
Emily, Education Program Specialist, Ohio Department of Education.
PBIS is based on the public health model, and really that's using tiers of support to address behavior. So the concept is there's not a one-size-fits-all for addressing behavior. Tier 1 are the prevention-based services that we're going to put in place for all students. What are we doing for all students to teach them about what the behavior expectations are, reinforcing those behaviors? Tier 2 are the additional supports and services beyond Tier 1, and really this is because we know there are factors that can make behavior a little bit more difficult for some students. So most of the time it's social skills groups, it could be academic supports, a lot of times we hear check-in and check-out, so really building relationships with adults. Tier 3 supports are more individualized supports, and it's really based on the individual need of that student. So we're looking at functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans tailored to the need of the student.
PBIS is a systems change process for teaching behavioral expectations in the same manner that academic skills are taught. Instead of telling students what not to do, we are teaching students what to do. There are several key elements to this process. The first of these is the concept of teaching and reinforcing behaviors versus relying on punishment.
Mike, Retired Education Program Specialist, Ohio Department of Education.
I would say historically, schools have just a long tradition of over-relying on punishment and discipline. We give kids a set of rules and we punish them when they don't follow the rules. PBIS shifts that whole process around and focuses on educators doing what educators do best, which is teaching.
Janine, Elementary Intervention Specialist.
Of course, when a kid comes to us not knowing their letters and sounds, what do? We teach them. And when they're not yet able to count or identify numbers, recognize numbers, we teach them. And when kids come to us with behavior challenges, I think for a long time, teaching wasn't the go-to. So I love that PBIS is about the teaching of the behavior.
Consistently reinforcing the behaviors is equally important to PBIS. When students receive positive feedback, they're more likely to meet behavior expectations. Research indicates that teachers who have 5 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction see improved student behavior and engagement in the classroom. And even outside of schools, studies show that top-performing teams in the workplace give each other more than 5 positive comments for every criticism. Evidence does not show that discipline practices that remove students from the classroom, such as suspensions and expulsions, help to improve either student behavior or school climate. And one study found that students' chances of dropping out doubled with their first suspension.
Tad, Assistant Director, Special Services.
Reducing suspensions and expulsions, that's important because if they're not in school, obviously the most obvious thing is they're not getting the instruction, they're missing, they're falling behind, and it might make the kid feel even more adverse to coming to school or how they feel about school in general. But sometimes we forget that a lot of these students, they rely on that support from a daily basis just for their basic needs and social emotional. So the more they're in school, the better. And when they're out of school, we don't have that contact time, and then they can sometimes come back worse off than they were when they left, and that's never a good thing.
Antoine, High School Teacher.
The idea of a punishment-based system, results tend not to really show the yield that you would expect. It obviously, in a lot of cases, it seems like the punishment typically benefits the punisher more than it does the punishees.
Another key element of the PBIS framework is consistency in behavioral expectations.
An important practice in PBIS Tier 1 is creating consistent expectations across the building. And this is important not only for our students, but also for our staff. And it's really putting everyone on the same page.
The simple truth is that what I might expect of a student in a hallway, in a bathroom, in the gym, may be quite different from what another staff member expects. It's really important that there be a dialogue between the members of the staff so that we can get more consistent in our messages to the students.
Karen, Elementary Teacher.
In our district, we have the same 3 big ideas from K to 12. So those are something that they will hear repeatedly over the course of their schooling career. So the expectations are the same, the rules are the same, and that way the kids can feel successful no matter what classroom they are in. From here moving forward, they already have a great foundation for their next classroom.
Christina, Middle School Principal.
So the reality of the PBIS program is when people first learn about it, it seems like this would be an easy fit for an elementary building. But how would this ever work in a middle or a high school? They still need to be learning those behaviors, and we don't expect them to know them when they walk in our door. Every environment is different, every school is different, and developmentally it changes as they grow.
Erica, High School Teacher and PBIS Coach.
And in a high school, there's so many moving parts. You have several different departments. You have students that are maybe gone to a career center during the day, students that are coming in later, students that are in CCP, College Credit Plus, coming in late, coming in early. The only way to maintain that regularity and continuity from one room to the next, one grade to the next, one level to the next, is by implementing PBIS, where everyone is enforcing the same expectations.
When setting and reinforcing expectations for behavior, it is important to use commonly agreed upon language.
Karen, preschool director and intervention specialist.
We use consistent teacher language, and we call it teacher language, but it's actually for anybody in our school districts. It's the parapros, it's the bus drivers, it's anybody who comes in contact, the speech pathologists. And we have these prompts posted in our classrooms, and these are for adults, not for kids, because we want to use that same language so they're getting the same message all the time and hearing those same words.
Michelle, State Support Team Consultant.
Children within their building and classrooms that are English language learners who may be learning English for the first time, and that consistency in the language that they are hearing to support the positive behaviors within the building they've really seen a benefit not only to children, but also to their families that are supporting them.
Annie, preschool itinerant teacher.
It's very fun when the children get dropped off or picked up at the end of the day. And they will ask them, have you worked hard today? We've heard parents say they use the same language in their home. I hear them, okay, we're going to be safe. We're going to use walking feet to get to the car. We're going to stay in a group to get to our car. Our parents have picked up our language very, very well.
A final key element of PBIS is the prompting and reteaching of behavioral expectations.
So just like academics, we don't teach a lesson plan one time and say, that's it, we're done. I hope you've learned the lesson. PBIS recognizes that when it comes to behavior, we have to be continually teaching and reteaching, and a lot of that is continual prompting throughout the environments.
As you continue to learn about PBIS, it is important to address some common misconceptions about the framework. The first misconception is that the only use for PBIS is to address challenging behaviors.
So we are providing supports for challenging behavior, but it's not solely about challenging behavior. Students who are doing the right thing need to hear that they're doing the right thing. They need that feedback.
Julie, elementary principal.
What we know about human beings is that what we pay attention to gets reinforced. And so this whole process is all about shifting our focus. So that same argument of, well, if the kids are doing the right thing anyway, we don't need to say anything. We only need to tell the parent, talk to the parents, communicate with the families of the kids who aren't following the rules. And the whole point of this process is to flip that on its head and say, no, we're paying attention to what we want to see. We're recognizing the kids who are making the right choices every day.
Chip, high school teacher.
Catching students that traditionally do well, right? And then, trying to provide some additional motivation for them and a reward for them, right? And for them to see things around the building of where teachers are recognizing their efforts, right? I think is a motivator for all students.
Another common misconception is that PBIS is all about the positive and does not allow for consequences.
Some people seem to think that PBIS does not support discipline and consequences. That's not true at all. Discipline and consequences are part of life. It's part of helping students understand how the world works. Discipline and consequences make so much more sense if you've been properly instructed in what's expected.
Really, what it comes down to with PBIS is we want to focus on making sure that any kind of consequence that is applied to a behavior is age appropriate, is specific to the behavior that we're trying to address, and also that there's some restorative features so that we're reconnecting any relationships that maybe might have been damaged.
An additional misconception is that PBIS is a package curriculum or program that gets implemented the same in every school.
A lot of times people might implement a program and think because it has positive features, they're implementing PBIS. And unfortunately, that's not true. PBIS is not just a curriculum that you can pull off a shelf and implement very quickly and easily.
PBIS really is not like prepackaged programs. It really does offer schools a lot of local control as to what they're going to put into their program. Local individuals decide on expectations. Local staff agree on what those expectations look like and where, and they agree upon how they'll be taught.
So you really do see a wide variety of PBIS implementation across the state and how people interpret that and what it looks like for their student needs.
It's important to clear up the misconception that PBIS is just one more thing, or yet another passing trend. As educators, we're all busy, and we've all seen programs come and go. So it's easy to be skeptical when something new comes along.
There's we used to call them flavors of the month. There's always something new, and I was always trying to find out, okay, is there a receipt and a warranty with this, and we have to, in order for us to keep it. I
In the beginning, went through the motions, not really fully invested in PBIS. And, our staff has a lot going on with other things, and I didn't want to put another thing on them. So I made up some posters with pictures, and I slapped them up on the walls, and I called it good. All right, we're PBISing. But then as you go on, you find that that's not how it works. And so a few years after that, our state support team was able to support us as a demonstration site, and we fully got on the PBIS bus, and it's made all the difference in the world.
When you recognize what PBIS has to offer and fully commit to it, then you'll see how it works hand in hand with the other priorities in your building or district.
Carrie, State Support Team Consultant.
And we can tie this all into district initiatives, whether you have multi-tiered systems of support and you're looking at academic outcomes and behavioral outcomes. PBIS is your foundation to move those practices forward.
Taraja, Middle School Counselor.
And so one of the things that we do that's a pretty big one is our School Rocks Bully and Drug Free. It's an opportunity for students to be able to shine and showcase some of the things that they're good at, as well as spreading the message of being bully and drug free.
Amanda, Social Worker.
So there is a suicide prevention program called SOS, and that is a program that we are implementing with 6th grade students this year. And it's a prevention program to bring about awareness of depression and suicide, and also to allow students to be able to recognize warning signs so they can help themselves and then also help other students and let them know there are people that they can talk to prevent that.
Programs like these are supported by PBIS because they are all grounded in building social-emotional competence. You've heard a lot about what PBIS is and what it's not. Now let's examine why PBIS is a universal expectation for all school districts in the state of Ohio.
PBIS is really powerful. We've had great results here for our kiddos, academically and socially. PBIS boosts academic performance, it reduces challenging behaviors that we see, and Tier 1 is where it all starts.
Most importantly, PBIS is proven to be effective in addressing the needs of the whole child. And Ohio can only reach success by meeting these needs. The time a student spends in school is precious and should ensure all aspects of a student's well-being are addressed, including the physical, behavioral, and social-emotional aspects.
Stacy, Middle School Assistant Principal.
It has allowed staff and students to build rapport and relationships, and very trusting relationships. And so when students have felt hurt and been hurt, they are able to share their pain and feelings through conversations with our staff in the building.
In addition to these outcomes, it's demonstrated that PBIS achieves an improved perception of safety, reduction in bullying behaviors, improved organizational efficiency, reduction in staff turnover, and an increased perception of teacher efficacy.
Source: PBIS.org, Horner, R. 2013. Deirdre, Elementary Principal.
And you really see that it works. When it is implemented with fidelity, it works. You see a reduction in office referrals. You see a reduction in distracting behaviors in the classroom. You see relationships grow between teachers and students. So when other staff members who may not have been implementing it with as much fidelity as they should see the success that other teachers are having, then it's easy to get on board.
We know that when families are engaged in the educational process, students achieve more. Families notice a difference in PBIS schools, and they're excited to see the results.
Mary Kay, Parent,
There was something about this school that just really stood out. And I think it had a lot to do with how the teachers and the students interacted. The teachers really engaged with the students and they put out this energy and the kids just fed off of it and they were excited to show their teachers that they were listening and learning and behaving in a way that made their teachers proud. And it just created an absolute energy in the school. And I thought, this is where I want my kids to be.
And kids want to be there too. PBIS creates a culture where students feel a sense of belonging and community. Creating that kind of energy takes the commitment of a whole building.
Brian, elementary principal.
It's imperative that everybody in the building is on the same page, from the secretaries to the administration to the teachers to any classified staff to the bus drivers and to the subs. The expectation is the program works when everybody does it together.
Kyle, elementary assistant principal.
We always leave each day, myself and Mrs. Mills, and we say, okay, what do we do good for a child today? And I honestly believe that through our PBIS supports, be it Tier 1, Tier 2, we can answer that with 100% accuracy that we're doing all that we can.
Ohio Department of Education.